So far in this class, we've talked a lot about different identity categories related to sexuality and gender. And we've talked about the choices that we make in performing those identities. But now let's talk a bit about where those choices, those opportunities come from. Let's think for a minute about clothing. The clothing choices that we make are a great example of one of the many ways we all perform gender and sexual identities. But where do those clothing choices come from? You get up in the morning, what choices do you have? They may be limited by what's in your closet, or what's in your dresser, or, if you're like me in college, what's sitting in a chair in the corner of the room. But where did those clothes, in the closet, on the chair, in the dresser, come from? They may have come from stores, or you may have ordered them online. You may have been inspired by fashion trends that you saw in magazines, on TV, online. The choices that are available to you when you go shopping for clothes or when you get up in the morning are influenced by a variety of social forces in your lives. And by extension, those social forces play a role in how you choose to perform your identity and the choices that are available to you. In the next few weeks, we're going to take a look at how people at the center of key social forces exercise their power or their ability to influence our beliefs, actions, and behaviors to limit or expand the choices we think of as available and acceptable when it comes to performing our gender and sexual identities. This week in particular, we're going to focus on the huge and influential force of social force of media. Broadly defined, media is communication mediated by technology and significant in the dissemination of cultural norms, what we think of and accept as normal and expect from each other. This includes both factual and entertainment programming and infotainment, television, music, radio, journalism, films, books, social and online media, and I'm sure I'm forgetting something. Media is a huge category. We're not just talking about the news, though we are going to talk about information and news media a lot. I also want us to think about media practices. There are a lot of people involved and a lot of processes involved in getting the media from inside someone's head to in front of our eyes or ears or on our screens or in our books. So let's break down media practices into two broad categories. So we're talking about the habits, the decisions, the behaviors, even the expectations of the people who produce media. And we're thinking about the habits, decisions, and behaviors of people who consume media. At both points, there are gendered expectations, gendered norms embedded in these two types of practices. I also want us to be aware that all media is political. Political doesn't just mean related to a political party or an elected official. When we're talking about things being political in this class, we mean that we're talking about relationships of power, equality, and inequality. Media is both affected by and helps to perpetuate norms, stereotypes, and expectations. That makes media incredibly powerful and therefore political. Now, for people who often see themselves and their experiences reflected in media, may not realize how powerful media can be because they don't have to think about how these representations affect people who don't see themselves represented in media in the same way. So media may not seem as political to someone who can point to multiple media sources and say, I see myself in this. But that doesn't mean that it's not both political and powerful as a social force in our lives. So when we talk about media in this class, we want to think about these four things. Who holds power in making media? How is that media shaped by the lived experiences of those people in power? How the decisions made by those people influence our beliefs, actions, and behaviors when we interact or consume that media, and how those decisions perpetuate inequality. I'm really happy with the 3 quotes that I found this week to close each of these 3 mini lectures. This one from Jacqueline Woodson. Some of you may have read her book, Brown Girl Dreaming, or some of her other youth and YA literature. But I really liked what this quote said about media in particular. Here, Jacqueline Woodson is talking about growing up as a queer Black woman and not seeing herself represented in media. Many of you may have had a similar experience to Jacqueline Woodson, and I want to explore those in your journal entries and in class in the coming weeks.